because it always picks up stuff, even if people aren't talking, it's always picking up something. So let's give this a try, and we'll jump right in. Okay, so folks, first things first, thank you, and we're really excited that you've chosen the Arkansas Career Explorer to use with West Memphis. And the first thing that I want to make sure that everyone knows is that the URL that they should be going to get to your site is wmsd.ar.headed2.com. All right, so that URL that you see in the toolbar right now, in the address bar, I should say, that is the URL you're going to want to go to. And you'll know you're in the right place if it says Arkansas Career Explorer for West Memphis School District, and you only have one option to sign in. It's to sign in with Google. All right, so that's the first, maybe most important thing, honestly, is that you're going to the right site, and it's wmsd.ar.headed2.com, and then sign in with Google, and then you'll be in. And the nice thing about this is, students don't need to remember username and password. They're going to just use their West Memphis domain to sign in. And the very first time that they do it, and the very first time that you do it, you probably will be asked one or two registration questions, first name, last name, school, for instance. Students have the option of putting in an email address, which we recommend, because later when they graduate or they move on, we will allow them to maintain access to the Career Explorer at no charge. But we have to port it over to a personal email address when that time comes. So it's a good idea to have the email address in, just so they'll maintain access to all their information, but it's not required. All right, so that's the first thing. So you go to the right site and you're in business, and I'm going to pick up this demonstration actually from our demo site, just so you can see the different versions and experiences that different folks have in the system. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sign in as a student, and this will be almost identical, with the exception of seeing a subscription demo is what it says on my screen, but for you it will say West Memphis School District, but the experience is the same. Okay, so one thing I want to point out when we get to the subscription demo, a couple things to make sure that you know, is that when you get into this page, you are going to see sort of three main doorways into the system: discover possibilities, explore pathways, and my summary report. And this is, any student will see this, and actually you as managers, teachers, educators are going to see that as well. Discover possibilities is where you're going to find all of the self-assessments in the system. All right, so things like budget your life, or the interest profiler, the quick assessment. My college preferences probably will not show up. It may not show up yet. It may be showing up in a little while. Work importance profiler, skills profiler, work keys. And again, up the ladder may not be showing up, but that's something we can talk about down the road. But the self-assessments you have access to will show up inside of that Discover Possibilities page. All right, we'll go into some depth on those, just so you can see a couple, and I'll make some recommendations about where to start with your students, but I want you to have that. Explore Pathways is the middle section. And that's where students, once they've completed self-assessment, once they have a better understanding of themselves and kind of where they might fit in the world of work, this is where they can start getting a lot deeper in terms of the actual career pathways that they might choose. By clicking Explore Pathways, they go in and they can see the 16 career clusters here. And if I click on health science, for example, I'm going to see the number of annual openings in Arkansas, the recent graduates, and the average wage. And I can also filter these according to highest paying, fastest growing, or most employed. And if I'm looking at different occupations, I can actually compare them. If I click 3, hit compare selected, and it'll put them all side by side, which is a really nice feature for students, because they'll sometimes have a few different ones they're taking a look at. And this is going to put next to each other the job zone, which is the amount of preparation that's required, interests, the cluster it's in, the work values, the salary, projected employment, etc. And if they find an occupation they're excited about, they click on View Occupation, and then they get taken into one of our occupation profiles. All right, so this is a typical occupation profile inside the system. It's going to give you some high-level data from the average salary to the annual openings, again, to the job preparation. If you hit the arrows, you can get an idea of the spread in terms of the salary and also employment. As you scroll down, you'll see some information about the job, what they do, the interests they have, and the work values, things they'll need to know. So like what sorts of subjects the student might be studying, in post-secondary or even in high school or down even into middle school. And then some of the power skills or soft skills that people refer to, critical thinking and active learning and active listening, those types of things. As they continue down, they'll see similar occupations. So they can look at occupations that are kind of like the ones that they're looking at. And they can also see occupations in the military. So if military is a consideration, that's something that they'll be able to look at as well inside the system and see that there is a corresponding occupation or option in the military too. All right, so we scroll up. Now I'm going to kind of go down the right-hand side. For one thing, if there is a video or images or anything that the student can look at, they'll be able to click the media gallery and watch a video, and you'll see that a lot of the videos, are, well, they're all captioned for one thing for the hearing impaired, but you also have sometimes thumbnails that look rather dated, but the video is updated. And that's because we're pulling in from the Department of Labor, and Department of Labor was really good recently about updating videos, but for some reason not about updating the thumbnails. Kind of odd, but just be aware of that. Sometimes the students will make fun of the thumbnail. Don't worry about that. Just have them continue through and watch the video where one exists. As we scroll down, there's this gray box that says you in this occupation. Encourage your students to interact with that box. Most importantly, if they like the occupation, have them give it a thumbs up. That's sort of like bookmarking in this system. That's a way to tell the system, hey, I might want to come back to this one. Or actually what I'd like is make recommendations that are similar to this one, or hey, I hate this one. Don't show me anything like this. I don't want to do this one. All right, so they should interact in that regard. We'll talk about compatibility score maybe a little later, but the reality is what we're doing here is that's matching up with the self-assessments that the student does. The more self-assessments that they do, the easier it is for the system to create an accurate compatibility score. The problem with the compatibility score is if the student's only done one self-assessment or no self-assessments, then it doesn't really have much to work on, and it can kind of give you a false reading. But just want you to be aware of that. As you look at the options here, you can, if you're in, say, this particular occupation, you can create a journal on the fly, right? So if I click add, it'll allow me to create a journal. It'll name it for you, or I can give it a test name, test journal 1, and then click add test journal 1, and then I'll say, I love this occupation. All right. Oops, try to spell it right. And then I'll create my journal entry. And now I've created a journal entry, and I actually will be able to come back to my journals at another point. I'll show you where to do that. But we do recommend, if you're teaching and using this tool in class, we do recommend using the journal feature. And the reason why is because it's usually pretty fresh in people's minds. Hey, I did really like this particular occupation, and here's why. And they have them write a couple of thoughts. This can be really useful, especially when you're thinking about student success plans. I mean, students might look at 10, 20 different occupations, and having the journals written, even if they're very short, remind the student what they liked about it, what they didn't like it, so they don't have to kind of re-go through the process and think about it all over again. So just something to think about. Another thing you can do directly from this gray box is create a plan for additional career exploration, or even eventually someday plan for a job application. So those are a couple of different plans that can be created from individual occupations. And lastly, if you actually are a little later on in life, you can add this to a resume. You can say, this is a job I've done, and that this is something I want to include on my resume in the system. As you scroll down, you'll see the Your Opportunity section. So here's where we would figure out where and how to start implementing a career plan for this particular occupation, where training, what sort of programs are available, certifications, actual jobs, and then companies, right? So sometimes you'll see that companies are more tied to something called local opportunities. And that's an option West Memphis has. They don't have to do it, but if you want to, you can populate the system with any sort of local company or community service organization or anyone you've got a partnership with, where maybe you're doing something like work-based learning or something with CTE, right? You are able to actually pull profiles into the system and make them discoverable. So it's kind of a cool feature, but it's more of an advanced feature, not for today, in terms of our walkthrough, but just something to bear in mind. And if anyone in the room is excited about that, talk to Tamika, and we can all get on a call together, and I can talk you through how to get that set up. All right. All right, so I'm going to pop back to my home page and back into Explore Pathways. You can see this Explore Colleges will be in your system. You will see that you'll be able to select the state we're looking at, and then as we look down, we can change the state, change the zip code, change the radius, and then we can also, just like with the occupation profiles, we can compare different universities, look at them side by student body size, type, tuition, room and board, average age, SAT, etc. And then we can look at a profile, just like we looked at an occupation profile, we can look at a profile for an individual university and get some information about what's going on there, including the tuition, financial aid snapshot, majors offered, and the like. Okay, so the system does allow students to go in and take a look at those options. The thing I'll say at the highest level, though, about the Arkansas Career Explorer that we want you to kind of, I don't know, take to heart is, our goal with students is sometimes we'll meet students and say, I know what I want to be. I want to be a surgeon. It's like, okay, that's great. But why, right? And so we're trying to help that student better understand the why behind why they might want to not just do an occupation, but even what's their next step academically, right? We don't want kids thinking that they have to go to a four-year university if actually maybe the occupation that they have their sights set on really is more about a certification that they need to get. And maybe a 4 year is a great option for someone else going in a different direction. But the idea of the system is, let's start with self-assessment. Understand who you are, understand what you like, what you're trying to get out of an occupation, then develop a pathway and a goal, and then figure out what tools you're going to need to achieve that goal, right? So, and that's kind of the flow of the system. Now, once the student's done a lot of work inside the system, they can click their summary report, and they're going to get a summary of everything that they've done, and that's all going to be here, all right? And there's a lot of data here. So this includes, all the results of a self-assessment, occupations they've looked at, colleges they've looked at, plans that they've created, and assignments that they've been assigned. You can create lessons, by the way, and assign them to your students, and we're going to show you how to do that. But it's all going to be captured here. And you should know, as educators, you have access to this for your students individually as well. And the last thing to point out is files, right? So if you ask your student to upload a file to their Arkansas Career Explorer, something maybe that you think's a critical part of their student success plan, for example, this is where they're going to upload it, and you'll have access to those files as well. A lot of times what we find is students make a file or a PDF out of activity that they've done in the system. Sometimes they'll see this option. It says Save to Career Hub. That's what that means. That means I'm going to take this page, I'm going to turn it into basically a PDF, and it's going to be an external file that I save in my Career Hub because it's going to be useful for me down the road. I will pause and let you, if you want to enter a question in chat or go off mute and ask a question, just want to make sure we're covered so far.
Anybody have any questions?
In the military section, why do we never get any pay or jobs out there? Like even on the other sites we've used in the past, like does the military not release that information?
Tamika, can you repeat the question just because it's a little hard to hear on my end?
So like whenever you where was I at when I did that? Well, you showed us where you could explore the pathways and then have a military option.
Yeah, just to show you it was showing you the corresponding occupation in the military at the bottom. So I'm looking at civil engineers. I click on in the military, and this is showing what those look like.
That's one thing my kids normally ask is it doesn't ever give them salary. It doesn't ever give them that information. They just need to base it off of what it is outside the military.
Well, so the information, the salary information, everything this is more in the civilian world, right? And this is giving you that idea of what you're getting paid here stateside to do these occupations. We're just what we wanted people to know is, hey, if I'm really interested in civil engineering, for example, there's different occupations in the military that I could look at, and this is the information. It gives you the code. Related occupations, etc. It doesn't go as deep, but it does tell you what the corresponding occupation is in the military.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we have. All right, any other questions? All right, back to kind of the nuts and bolts. Oh, sorry, was there something?
No, I think that's it. They're good.
Okay, good. So back to sort of the nuts and bolts of this page and what folks are seeing. So we talked about the main door. So, you know, you're working with students, you have them pull up, they go right to, this is their homepage. We call this the Career Hub. And you can see it says, what's your plan, Wendy? I'm logged in as a demo user, Wendy. And so this is what she sees: discover possibility, explore pathways, my summary report. And if you're a teacher saying, look, kids, I want all you guys to do a budget today, and I'm going to show you how to do it. You click on discover possibilities. We're going to click on budget your life, and we're going to start the activity. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. But I wanted to kind of first familiarize you with those top navigation, right? Now, when you scroll down, there's a couple things that are useful here. One is in Wendy's stuff, right? This is going to give her these cards are for recently completed activities or recommended activities. You know, so a star is going to basically, this first one is basically making a suggestion of what we think she should do next. But since she wrote that test journal when we were doing the exploration before, that comes up as a recent card. And she could open up that card if she wanted to. So think of that as recent work that they've done. If they want to pretty much do anything, they could go right to budgets. If they want to create a journal, if they want to create a reference list, they want to view all the occupations they've given a rating to. If they want to manage the files, that's all going to be from this I want to button, all right? And there are other ways to download files into their Career Hub. You could literally drag it into this area and it'll automatically go. You could click the disk and choose a file to upload from your desktop, right? So you can do that and pull that in. So there's a couple ways to bring files into the system, but all of it is going to be captured in the Wendy Stuff section. And one thing to be on the lookout for in the coming months or so is there's going to be a way to view all. Right now, it's just pulling in the most recent work. And if you want to go deeper, you'd click I want to, and then you'd say open up journals, and you'd see the actual journals. But there's going to be a way to see everything there. As you scroll down, though, a couple other things that I want to make sure you see. On the right side, the student is seeing this little box. It says share your progress. Share your learning progress with a teacher using their 6-letter educator code. Now, I'm going to show you on another screen what your code looks like when you all log in. But the student is going to enter that code here to come under your management. So say they're working with me. Say I've got a class of 20 kids, and I want them to all come under my management. I'm going to have a code that's something like, I don't know, WXVDC3, all right? I'm going to have my students type in that 6-letter educator code, hit request, all right? And then they're going to fall under my management, which means I'm going to be able to access their summary report, for example, or I'll be able to run an aggregate report of what they've done in the system. So having that user management is very helpful as an educator, especially if you've got a homeroom you're working with or a cohort. You're going to want to make sure you do that. There is a way for us, and Tamika and I can work together on this, to bulk upload all the groups. Just like we've uploaded you as educators, we can make it so that you can have the students assigned to educators in bulk. So that's something we can explore. But if you're entering your class even tomorrow, right, and you want to start working on this, that's a really quick way to get it done. And I'll show you where you're going to find your educator code, but this is where your students are going to enter it in. Also, you've got a little message section, right? So messages can be sent from within the Career Explorer, and they don't have to go out to a student email. Students will get a notification in the upper right. You should be able to see it here, that there is like a little notification box here that they've gotten some messages. They could click on that and then look at the messages that they've been assigned, or if they've been assigned a recent assignment, they'll see a notification for that as well. All right. So think of those messages as really, it's not an email system, it's more of a notification system to let your students know that there's something they should do or where you want to point them next. And then at the bottom, you'll have recently viewed items and then other recommendations that that individual student can check out. So that's kind of a complete tour of this Career Hub page, and you know, just all the different options that you can do. So I'm going to log out of the student right now, and I'm going to log in now actually as a manager. And this is going to give you an idea of a manager in our system is like an educator. And I'll sign in there. It's going to give me some on-screen, little tutorial about what I can do and how to do it, stuff that I'm covering in this call, so I don't need to read it right now. And you'll see your page is a little different than the students. The biggest difference is that you have this toolbar at the very top. For one thing, it has your educator code is right at the very top, so it's a quick reference telling you you're a manager and gives you quick options to go to your users or lessons, all right? The other thing you can do is hit the information button. That's going to take you to our educators corner, which is where all of our materials are that would educate you, user guide, video tutorials, etc., are all in there. And then there's messages here. So all of that can be done directly from this top toolbar, which is pretty useful for you. But you'll see also where that student was entering the code, you see your actual educator's code. And if you forget what that was all about, you click the information and it'll give you some information about what that is. The button I think you're going to probably click most often from this top toolbar is Manage Users. All right. And in this case, I've clicked Manage Users, and this is a page that students don't see, but you see as an educator, which is this has the 27 students that this mock educator has under their management. All right. So I've got the 27 kids in my class. Now, if I was an administrator of the system at the highest level, I would see all the students in a school or even a district, right? So, but since I'm just an educator, I'm only worried about the 27 students that are under my management. That's all I need to see, and that's what I'm seeing here. With this list, all right, you've got some default filters. I can filter this to just look at the students by clicking users, right? I can look at it by graduation year if I want to. If I was an admin and I wanted to look at different schools, I could do that there, but that's not relevant as much to the educator. Okay, so the other thing I can do though is I am able to, if groups have been created at the deployment or at the district, I'll be able to look up my subgroups. But in this case, you don't need to worry about that. That's more of an administrator thing because your group is the people you're managing. Now it's going to give you an option. So now it's going to say I've got 26 users below, and for the 26 users below, run a report, assign a lesson, send a message. But say for instance, I only want to pull up a couple of those. Let's just say Friesen is one of them, and we'll do Faye as another one. Okay. So I can look up just a couple of the students, right? And let's say these are the two students who didn't complete the assignment I really needed them to complete. I might send them a message, right? Send a message. It says send a message to 2 selected users. And I could write them a message and say, hey, get this assignment done, right? Similarly, I could run a report that is just for those 2 users. So if it says for the 2 users below, run a dashboard report. Click dashboard report. This is your first look at this. This is a dashboard report that basically shows you all the activity in the system and who's completed what. If you see a green dot, it says it's completed. If it's an open circle, it's in progress. And if it's a hash mark, it's not started. And you'll see if you hover over any of these acronyms at the top, it's going to actually tell you what it is and give you a key for what the different things mean. You can export this to Excel or CSV if you'd like, if you need to manipulate the data, but that's there for you. Other reports that you can run, I mean, you can go really in depth here. You can run a report on the budget the students do, the interest profilers they do, and look at the similarities and differences there. Skills profiler, work importance profiler. An assignment status report is a report that allows you to see if you've assigned a lesson to all of your students, that's going to tell you who's completed what lesson. So in this case, I'm going to pull up those 2 students, and I'm going to pull up, let's just do this lesson. Student Success Module, 8th grade. Let's pretend like I had assigned those. Well, actually, I didn't. It says I didn't assign them since it's NA, and there's no progress, so I haven't done it. So these 2 students are students that I want to assign that plan to because I haven't done it yet. This assignment status report tells me I should do that. If I had assigned it to all of my students and I ran this report, it would show you the date assigned, the date it was started, the date it was submitted, the date if I approved it, that it was approved, the tasks that were completed and the progress. That would all be there, okay? So this assignment status report is one we expect you'll probably want to use because it's the one that's tied into the lesson plans in the system that you might want to give a try to. All right, other ones that are here, a tagging report is the last one I'm going to talk about, which is the tagging report is if you have asked students to upload files, you have the option to tag the files with something that's common. So, because sometimes students will upload a file and they'll name it something different, even though it's all part of the same assignment. They'll have 10 different names for it. You can tag it with a consistent tag like let's say, college essay draft is your tag. And then you can run a report on who has a file with the tag college essay draft in my class. All right. So if you're using external files as part of your assignment, then you might want to use that tagging report as a way to see who's done what. All right, I know a lot of that's kind of complex and a little bit wonky. So if anyone has any questions, I'll pause and see if any questions are in the room.
Yeah, I got a couple.
Can you hear me, Blair?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yep.
Okay. So going back to what you were talking about earlier with the assessments, real quick, is there a recommended order for the assessments?
Yeah. Okay. And I'll get to that. So let's pause on that question because I'm going to get to that next. Any other questions?
Yes. You said that we could drag and drop files into that main portal. What kind of files do we accept? Is there a preferred one we can use? Can we use Google Docs? Does it have to be Microsoft JPEG files? I mean, like, what will it accept?
So that's a good question. So Google Docs, you're going to have to download the file and then move it into the system. All right, because Google Docs does a thing where like Google Docs will automatically update a file, right? As the student works on it. And the files that are here, you got to think of these as more like a snapshot in time, right? So that's the only one where, a Word doc, PowerPoint, Excel, those things, you could all drop those in. But a Google Doc, you got to download it maybe as a PDF or as a Word or whatever, and then drop it in to have it save in this system, because we don't have the capability to have it like automatically update. And we don't really want it to, because sometimes teachers want to have, that essay be, kind of signed, sealed, and delivered, and not have students be able to go in and delete it or anything like that. So that's the only one where there's an exception. If you're in Docs, ask the student to download it and then move it into the system if you want to do it that way.
Okay. And then you're talking about like we have kids that are allocated to our group. If we have somebody transfer within the district from another school, does their work follow them to the when they transfer?
Well, okay, so if a student comes in from another school, they're going to be given a domain, West Memphis domain, and they'll be able to sign in with Google. They'll get in. The one thing is now they're in your class though, right? The thing you're going to want to do is when they sign in that first time, say, hey, Johnny, like, welcome to the school, and put in TQOZJY or whatever your code is, right? And then they'll come under your management. Now, it's possible that they've done work in another school on the Arkansas Career Explorer, but not totally likely, since this is sort of the first year that we're in the state. So I wouldn't worry as much about pulling it in. We do have a way to merge data if they had, but for the time being, the number one thing to focus on is just getting them that educator code so they come under your management.
Not quite, because you're talking about school. Because we have multiple junior highs. So if a kid comes from one junior high to another
in the district.
Yeah. If they come from within the district, it'll all come right with them, right? So that's the good news. That all that stuff's going to be there. The only thing that's different is now they're going to come under your management as a teacher. And by the way, students can be managed by any number of teachers. It's not like they can only be managed by one. They can enter that code in for any number. So that's the only thing that'd be different is now they're under your management, but their data is all there. It would all come with them. Does that answer it?
That answered it.
All right, good. Sorry about misunderstanding on the first one. Okay.
All right. You made mention of something about lesson plans. Are there lesson plans within here or recommended lesson plans that you're going to show us at some point?
Yeah, so I'm going to do this in two parts, and that's where I was going to kind of go next, which is sort of, all right, well, now I'm showing you the system, so what should I do with it? And I'm going to show you kind of the easy way in and a little bit more advanced, but not too far advanced, and that's the top exercises that people do, 1 and 2, and then I'll talk about lesson plans. But any other questions before you do that?
Nope.
All right. So where I wanted to finish our introductory call today, and remember, it's just an introductory call. Once you guys have had some time to work on this, I'm happy to hop back on a call and answer questions and go more in depth. So I just wanted to make sure to give you enough to work on to introduce this to your students. So that's kind of where I wanted to finish our introductory call today, and then we can ask any other questions you have, which is sort of how should I launch this in my class? Where is the best place to start? Well, the first thing I would do with students is explain, what is the Arkansas Career Explorer? Because, some students, they may not really be familiar with what this kind of system is all about. Some of them maybe have used something in the past, maybe, Cooter or whatever, but just for the kid that really doesn't know, the idea here is this isn't just like a job website. This isn't like monster.com. This is a site that's actually here to help you develop a career plan, right? This is about trying to figure out what you're going to do and with your education and what's next for you. And the way it's going to do it is it's going to start you off in the areas of self-assessment and then move you through into exploring careers and then finally developing a plan. So that's kind of the highest level description of what's going on. If I'm working with a class, my go-tos, right? I've got two the most popular self-assessments in this system. And by the way, guys, this system, we use this in Arkansas, but it's been in California for the last 15 years and in 90% of the districts in California. We've been in Pennsylvania for the last, I think, 13 years. So this system's actually had a lot of students working on it. We're excited to be in Arkansas, and it's new for us to be in Arkansas, but the nuts and bolts of this have been tested. And we know that these two exercises, Budget Your Life and Interest Profiler, tend to be a hit. So those are good places to start. And I'm going to show you what I mean. So Budget Your Life is an introduction to financial literacy. And what I would suggest is do the Choose Your Lifestyle tool, because a lot of students, they may not know what they want to do with their life, but they may actually, know kind of more how they want to live. And that's sort of an important point. You can see here, by the way, if I'm looking, I can pick any county at random in the state if I want to focus in. Remind me what county you guys are all in. Oh, you're sorry. Well, I'll just.
Brendan.
Brendan. Okay.
Oops. That was me.
Okay, so I'm pulling up this. What it does in each county, by the way, is it's going to pull in the cost of living data for each county. And when we jump in, it's going to go through and show you a bunch of different parameters of a budget. For many kids, it's their first budget. And so, you got to explain some of these things to them, but some of them are fairly obvious, right? Which is like, well, what's your living situation going to be? Are you going to rent an apartment, buy a place, own a place that's already paid for, if you're really fortunate, live with parents, family, or friends, right? So students are going to go through and make decisions here. And then they're going to get an idea of how much things are going to cost them on the basis of those decisions, and, over time, as they use this tool, they're going to start to figure out that if they make more aggressive answers or more luxurious answers, like I want to eat out at nice restaurants or, nothing fancy even, hey, this stuff adds up. How much you go out during the week is going to add up. So same thing with buying clothes or outfits or whatever, right? So these things definitely have a way of compounding. And this is kind of the teaching lesson. Even, you're having a car. A lot of times folks think to themselves, well, I own a car. I have no loan, so I don't have any costs. Well, no, you have costs to that car. That car is going to have some costs too. Health coverage. A lot of students aren't expecting that they might actually have to contribute or have some money that they throw in for their own health coverage. In terms of where they're going to go to school, what the costs of that are going to look like, depending on public or private, financial aid or no financial aid, that's going to make an impact. They may not know the answers, but you can ask them to sort of try out different ones. And then there's the question of savings, right? As we finish this up, they're going to get a monthly budget, how much money they're going to spend a month, or at least how much they're going to need a year. And it does include taxes. We do get that question. Taxes are factored in there. And then when you click View Occupations, you're going to see a set of occupations that meet to that budget requirement. And you'll see a piggy bank next to it. So that Budget Your Lifestyle tool is very successful, as one you could use with students, because they really do engage that as material. They seem to be very interested in it. And it does give them a kind of intro to financial literacy. Interest Profiler, though, is where we start getting into actual self-assessment in terms of, what are my interests, and in turn, what kind of occupation is going to be right for me. So I click on Start a New Interest Profiler. I have an option to do a 30 question or a 60 question. And what we say to folks is, look, the 30 question is pretty good. You know, it's 60 is maybe a little more statistically significant, but not by much. And you can get through a 30 question in class and have conversation around it a lot easier. 60 can take a little bit of time. So let's do 30, and then click on next, and they're going to give us some instructions on what to do. And they're going to ask about different tasks that I might do at work and how do I react to it. You know, am I handy? Would I like to build kitchen cabinets? As if I move on to the next one, do I want to develop a new medicine? Am I more scientifically oriented? Yeah, pretty cool. Write books or plays? Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Teach an exercise routine? No, that's not for me. Buy and sell stocks? No. Develop a spreadsheet? No. You know, so this is basically what you're going to see your students do, is go through these and hopefully be kind of thoughtful about what they're interested in. And you know, what would be something that would be fun for them to do. And you can see it's all kinds of different tasks that they might perform at work. And when they go through these, and I'm going to start speeding through just so I can get to a results page, they're going to get a list of occupations that match up to their particular interest set. So this is the other really good place to start. You know, we talked about Budget Your Life and the lifestyle budget. The interest profiler is a really good one. Click Summarize. It's going to give you your scores in terms of your top 3 interest areas in order of importance, and then secondary ones. And then if I view occupations, I'm going to see occupations that show up in orange, and those are going to be matched to my interests. And I'm going to see which ones have a video, which ones are in a job zone with more or less preparation required, and it does give you a score to match up against it as well. So the basic question of like, well, where to start with kids, those are 2 really good places, Budget Your Life and Interest Profiler. Now, the last thing I want to point out is there are lessons. So if we're in the management tool, we click on lessons. We're going to, well, first get told sort of what improvements have been made to the system. There will be, you'll find some pre-populated lesson plans are inside the system that you can take advantage of, you know, that are there to support student success plans. What we do find is educators may see some of these and like them, but want to revise them or add to them. You can always do that. So if you see a plan that you like, a lesson that you like, click on Actions. If you click on Learn, you can find out more what's going on inside of this lesson, see if you like it. If you click on Preview, you're going to see what the student sees when they walk through this particular lesson. And if you want to, like I said, do a revision, you can always duplicate it and then edit it. In terms of manage assignments, if I click manage assignment, what that's going to do is that's going to show who I've assigned a lesson to. And if I want to unassign it, or you know, say I've done a revision, I might want to unassign it and assign the revision. That's possible too. So something that you can think about. So these are some of the pre-populated ones that are in there, and we plan to be adding more throughout the academic year. But what we find is also commonly used is just create a lesson. So if you have you played with the tool, kind of know what you want your students to do, you want them to write a little essay or a little reflection on an occupation they like, you figured that all out. You click create a lesson, you give it a name, you give it a suggested grade level, right? And then it's going to ask you which tasks you'd like to populate inside the system. So I'm going to call this test lesson 1, and then we'll do 9th grade for the lowest suggested, and we'll do 10th grade for the highest suggested, create lesson. And now here we are, I'm allowed to add an introduction, and then I click new task, and now you can see these are different tasks I can add: a text or reflection, an interest profiler, work importance profiler, skills profiler, budget, survey, right? So I can include a survey in the system, video, etc. So you can all do that from the create a lesson button. So this is where, you know, you have to spend a little bit of time in the system yourself to kind of decide what path you want to take. You know, we definitely see a mix. Some educators are very dependent on using lessons. Some educators love the lessons that are already in there. Others develop their own. Some educators never touch lessons, and they actually only use the individual activities in their classes. And they'll have students do work importance profiler one day, and they'll have them do budget your life the next day, et cetera. And they'll have them go into explore pathways and ask them to compare 2 2 career clusters. So I'll have an assignment aligned to that. But you can see that there's quite a bit to do, and we haven't even gone through all of it, because at the very top there are some more navigation options under Explore, Decide, and Grow, right? Which include things like, say, a resume builder, or a letter builder, or a reference list builder. You can also look at things like the cost of college or financial aid. You can do a job search. And then what's interesting about the job search in the Arkansas Career Explorer is you can actually look not just for job openings, but you can look at just for apprenticeships and internships. So something to think about as we're kind of winding into the summer later on, right, is to be able to look for those summer internships that are so coveted, right? So these are all just options. And like I said, for me, even when I started working at this company 3 years ago, to try to support the different systems they're doing, the best thing I did was just start playing with it myself. And you're going to see a lot of different options for your students when you do that. But like I said, if you're going to start this thing tomorrow and you want to just get going, going into Discover Possibilities, Budget Your Life, or Interest Profiler is really a can't fail way to start. All right, any other questions?
Yes. With the budget profile.
Yeah.
The Budget Your Life. I think I tinkered with that a little bit, and there are preset amounts in there. Is there a way to change what the preset amount is? Like, it started doing something funky as I started to add different things to the budget, and I was trying to make the numbers more realistic if there were things that were known. But then I was having the issue with what it was putting in as, I guess, a recommended number versus what I wanted it to keep.
Yeah, so great question, and the answer is yes. So if you get to a number that looks a little funky to you, right? So it says 638 for rent an apartment, and I know, that's not accurate. It's more like, 1,000. I can go into the box, click it, and click next selection and adjust the amount. And one thing that I've done with students, one of the limitations of this tool as it is written currently, and it's something we're thinking about changing, but is that this is budgeting for yourself individually, right? But, I'm in a family of 4 here, and these numbers change, as you're thinking about supporting kids and everything else. So you might even have an exercise where you have kids do the budget a second time, but this time let's change the monthly costs on the basis of having a family, right? And see how that changes things. This is one thing to be working for yourself, but it's another thing to be working for a whole family. So something you can do, and yes, you can adjust and manipulate the numbers in the monthly cost. Other questions? No? Okay, so I hope that was a helpful introduction to the system. Like I said at the outset, we will share a recording of this so you can go back and watch it, better understand it, and hopefully you'll have no problems logging in. But if you do have any issues logging in, let me know. We did start with this point, which is the place you're going to log in is wmsd.ar.headed2.com. That's the URL. We'll share that around, make sure everyone has that. But that's where you're going to log in. You're going to sign in with Google, and you'll be into your version of the system. And so definitely spend some time with it, and let us know, any feedback you have. One of the most important things I should probably finish with saying is that if you hit any kind of a stumbling block, something doesn't seem to be working properly, anything that happens like that, click Help Support, and then scroll down to the very bottom and click Send Us an Email. That's going to go straight to our engineering team, the folks that can probably most quickly resolve, anything technical in nature is going to be that. And then you could always feel free to email me. I'm BLAIR at headed2, which is HEADED, the number 2.com. And you can ask me any kind of general questions that you may have. But if it's technical in nature or it's a bug or something like that, you might want to use the Send Us an Email option, which is the bottom of the help menu. All righty. Well, thank you all for your time and attention today. I will stop the recording there.